Good afternoon, class. I'm going to make a brief follow-up video for research. And so you're thinking about your research paper, and you have given me two topics, possible topics that you want to research in for the World Religions course. And I've either approved the topics or I've said to you to maybe narrow the topic or make the topic a bit more clear. Um, or less general. And now you're looking, the next assignment is to look for four sources of possible research. And I sent out a template on how you're to present the sources. You want to provide the author of the source, why that author is an expert in that subject or a related subject, who published the work, and if it's an academic um, uh, press or if it's a popular press with an academic division, and um, and why you want to use that source. So that's the assignment. But I want to reflect a bit more on how to choose really good sources. So again, this is World Religions. I'll be taking a few good works in for this topic. And so I just want to sort of say a thesis that I think will be generally helpful. And this thesis is, if you found one good source, uh, which is a book, if you found one good book, which is a source, chances are you found 100 good sources. And I'll explain what I mean by that, but I think that that might be the best way to conceptualize what a good source is, and or what the best kind of sources might be for these types of research projects. Because you don't just want to have adequate sources, you'd like to have the best sources. And so, again, I'll say it, if you find one good source, chances are you found 100 good sources. And what that means is the source of the that you have, the author or authors have really done their research and have sort of summarized and utilized much of the research in that discipline and have provided you with many more sources than just their texts, but rather hundreds of articles that they themselves have cited and referenced. And I'll give a few examples. So here's one. You can choose any concept from any religion, basically. I'm just going to few good sources. This is the Hebrew Bible Today. It's a good source, but here's what I mean. So if we turn to the reference page, and its notes, and it gives the reference. I'm not sure how clear this will be, but you just see 7 sources here, and it just keeps going. We have dozens and dozens of sources, of references, of things that this author has referenced. All these sources here are also good sources, and they're going to be particularly relevant. They're going to be talking either about a particular Hebrew Bible book or a particular method of interpreting. But if you go to this reference page, you can basically see not all of the works, but a great majority of the other scholarship on this topic. And this is what makes this source good. It's not only giving you one source, but it's given you more than 100 possible sources to use. I'm just going to maybe belabor this point for a second. This is a good work on Christianity, a global perspective by Chittister. And again, if you go to the back on the reference page, you will get, starts low, but you will get dozens and dozens of sources, and this just keeps going for page after page. And so this idea, if you find one good source, you've found at least 100 other good sources. And the same thing for Zen Buddhism, a history, another great work. But again, so this could be one of your works if you're working on Zen Buddhism. But you also, again, now some don't put all the sources in the back. Some put it after each chapter. But after each chapter, you see the notes, and you just get, again, dozens upon dozens of good sources. As for this chapter, not all are, some are repetitious, but yeah, they've got about 100 sources per chapter, which is good. And then you go to the chapter before, and the same idea, dozens and dozens of sources. So this is what I mean. If you find one good source, chances are you found 100 good sources. Just again, great commentary on the Quran, the early revelations in the Quran. And if you go to the back, again, you see further resources, and you just get, again, resources and dozens of other approaches and commentaries. So once again, if you found one good source, chances are you found 100. Now this will become very helpful. I, for this paper, I don't require you to write a literature review, but eventually you will have to, and so you have to yourself be familiar with the scope of the literature, and texts like these are great because it's going to show you dozens to hundreds of texts or articles or resources that it would help you to familiarize yourself with, to sort of know the scope of the field, know where the particular resources on exactly what you want to research are. So, and again, those are just books. Articles most likely will have less. I'm a big fan of Hegel, so I subscribe to the Owl of Minerva, which is a Hegel journal. And again, so let's just go. So again, less resources than a book, but with this bibliography, you can definitely see about 24 sources here. So maybe if you find a good source that's a book, you found at least 100 good sources. And if you find a good source that's an article, you found at least 25 good sources. So I only asked you for 4 sources for this assignment. Basically, you just find one good source, and then you look at 3 other sources that source cites that might be of interest to you, pick the other 3 that are most interesting, and you found your 4 sources. But here's sort of the the other distinction, right? If you have a source and it doesn't have any other sources, or it might have 1 or 2, I wouldn't use that source. I would just pick another source, whether it be a book or an article. You want to try to find the best sources. And what the best sources do is they have been dialoguing with all the scholarship, or with a great majority of the scholarship in the field, and they're going to indicate exactly how they've been doing that and how they think all the other sources are relevant. And they do that with either the footnotes, the endnotes, or the reference page. And so one good source will give you access to quite a large majority of the scholarship in the field. And so when you select your 4 sources, select sources like that. Know who the author is, know why the author is an expert, know who is publishing it, know if they're an academic press or if they're a popular press with an academic division, and see how many sources they have. And again, if it's a book and they have about 100 and all the sources seem quite relevant, I think that's a good way of looking at it. And similar with an article with about 25. Now, are there great articles that only have like 8 or 10? Of course they are. But this is just a general rule, some indication and guidelines to give you while you're also filling out the other information. So I hope this helps not only to complete the assignment, but to provide a bit more insight on exactly what some excellent sources might be for your research. Feel free to email me if you have any questions or send me a message on Canvas. Take care and good luck with the assignment.